Welcome to February's webinar. Today we're going to be talking about bank types and some things that people may have known or may not have known about how bank types operate, and then specifically how Cogitate has implemented comp time with bank types. So it'll be a little bit payroll sided, but like everything, the first thing we do is set up our ground rules. So if you have any questions, pop it in the chat message. Now I got a monitor, Paul. Say hi, Paul.
Hello.
Okay, so we got Paul there who's monitoring our chat boxes to let me know if there's a question. I'll try to stop for open Q&As at the end of each of the kind of topics we cover. And again, if we don't get to your questions, we will follow up with emails or give you a phone call afterwards. Just to let you know, the next webinar will be March 7th at 10. And again, depending, hopefully by then we should have something about the new time card system online. But can't guarantee it until it's, I don't want to show it until it's working, pretty much perfectly for most things. So we will go into Pro Fund Accounting. We just did a release this morning.
So we did have a question in the chat.
Oh, all right.
Just to clarify, this webinar is for Cogitate's accounting software?
Correct. This is for Cogitate's accounting software. Okay, so we fixed the issue with incentive pay. Incentive pay was just showing the straight number of incentive hours that was included, not the dollar amounts. So we corrected that. Then we updated the import time cards to show only job information for time card entries if you have job costing enabled in your system. So if you've turned on job costing and are trying to use job costing in the time card system, we went ahead and modified that to allow you to show that. And then we also added for the job costing the hours, job cost hours. So that's kind of all we did for that, for the very latest one. Then before that, we modified the W-2s to accept box 12E and F columns. I'm going to show that today. And then we also fixed the W-2 to print a second copy of the W-2 if there is more than 4 box 12 issues. Client prep, we had to make an adjustment to make client prep run, but not many people use that on a day-to-day basis. Then we modified the payroll stub generator to show incentive pay, but we did that obviously on the 24th. We made the mistake, so we had to fix it on the 7th. We added Ohio state tax to our system, and that was pretty much the big thing on the 24th, was getting the Ohio tax, state tax and local tax set up. We fixed the connection issue when running reports. That was a little issue that came up. Then we updated the time card feature to use a command prompt to get the direct equipment expense. So that it makes it a lot easier to look at when you're importing time cards. We added a parameter to indicate whether you're printing vendor forms so that it made the right adjustment in the layout for the 1099s. We did we modified it so that in payroll info, it automatically selects the first record instead of not, so it doesn't look weird on it acted weird because if you started keying in your new one and you didn't click new, it would kind of take it, but not. So we kind of straightened that out. We updated the tree control for the time card permissions, and we're going to be moving the same thing into some of the other forms. Let's see, we did the vendor mates to allow 2 vendors to be merged. That was a big thing that somebody had wanted, was the ability to merge vendors. So you can take a vendor, let's say you have 2 AT, let's say you have a vendor and then somebody created another one for the same vendor but didn't know it because they didn't know the original vendor code. You can merge the 2 together so that you still have, so you end up with just one vendor code. We updated the W-4 for the federal to the 2022. I also updated the Michigan somewhere along here. I don't know if that got popped in. We updated the Michigan W-4 for 2022. Yeah, updated the Michigan W-4 to the latest version of Michigan W-4. So that kind of covers anything. Let's see what I have. Do we have anything else going on? Any other questions coming in about what we've changed or updated?
Where do you find the vendor merge function?
The vendor verge, the vendor verge, I love it. Vendor maintenance, if I come in here, let's say I have, I don't know, let's find something that's interesting. Let's say I have, we have AT&T and I don't know, let's just take a value. So let's say somehow a value was supposed to become also part of AT&T. So you can come in here, and as long as you just type in the ATT code and you hit save, it'll stop you and say there's already a vendor with the same code. The original vendor will be removed, which would be the original vendor was, what was the original vendor? AutoWares. So the original vendor of AutoWares will be, so if you say that, you just say yes. You say yes, there you go. And now you just have AT&T and AutoWares is actually gone from the list.
Another comment is, thanks for fixing vendor merge. Works great.
All right, very good. All right, I'm going to move on to payroll then for banks. Just a brief background. I'm sure everybody kind of understands it, but what banks are is it's a way to collect additional hours that somebody is owed. So when somebody is owed like 4 hours of vacation time or has accrued vacation time, banks is where we would store that vacation time in a payroll bank. So if we go to payroll banks, I have a great one called TST for test. We have a sick and a vacation. You can simply create as many banks as you want. Creating a bank is, let's say we want to do a personal. I like keeping it all caps, but you don't have to. It can be upper and lowercase. So we ask you to put in how do you want this to be, shown up on their pay stub. So, and the miscellaneous name that works on several of the reports and several of the drop-down lists that come in. So I just tell everybody keep it just personal. If you want notes for the check, this is if you want a big long set of notes like we did in personal time. Then we have the calculation type. So this is kind of important to know. When we're doing the bank add portion for people's pay, in other words, when they're going to be adding time in for personal, when they accrue or amass time for personal, it comes in, there's a lot of different types of mechanisms for that. But basically what we want to say is we're always going to add the value in parameter 1. That way, every time you run bank add, it'll add 2 hours or 1 hour of personal time in. Or we can say only add it when it's on the anniversary date of the employee. So in other words, like once a year, he gets 40 hours of vacation or personal. And then we just keep adding it. We don't do anything to the current. Or we have the other one where we say we zero what's ever left of that parameter, and we just add new. So in other words, if he's only got time that works for, from pay period to pay period, in other words, he gets, a lot of times there's places that will have like 1 personal day per every 2 weeks pay period. So they can take, or a half day, 1 personal half day. But if they don't use it, then they don't get to roll it over in the next period. In other words, so they only get a half day for every 2 weeks. And then we can zero balance the value of parameter 1 based on the anniversary date. So we have it, it's either per every pay or it's per anniversary date is our two ways that we have of adding the calculation. I'm going to just say I always put the parameter 1 for now for my personal. And then the associated bank is important because that allows you to say personal is really a part of his sick time. So in other words, every time I take a personal day, it's actually also taking a sick day. Even though I'm adding personal separate as a separate kind of bank that I'm keeping track of, it also consumes one of their sick days. But in this case, personal is not going to be, it's just going to be for that. So we'll go ahead and save that. Then when we want to do personal, you'll need to have a payroll type. Set up. So we're going to create a new payroll type. And we're going to, it's sometimes easier to keep the same code, but we're just going to call ours P. Okay, caps, come on, caps lock, there you go. P for personal. Short name. And if there's a default account number or not, but sometimes there is, I wouldn't know what it would be in this database that I have. Payroll factors, again, for pay types, it's the, if I have if I have a rate, dollar rate, this is how much I multiply the dollar rate for and the time he's taken for personal. So my guess is it's just going to be a 1. And it is taxable, but then we update the following bank, PER. So now when I'm going to be taking personal time out, I'll be charging it to pay type P for personal. And then when I post it in payroll post, I'll be putting in an account number for personal. Now, if it's the same account number, you can put it here and then it will always use that account number. But today wasn't really talking too much about this. So we're going to go ahead and save the P for personal. So then if we come in here and we go to, I forgot something on setup banks, hang on. Parameter titles, amount. Okay. So now when we go to employee maintenance and we bring up Fred Flintstone, who's one of my favorite employees, we can go to his banks. And he's got sick and tests. We need to add a new bank to him. And the new bank code is personal. And here's where that word amount comes in. So whenever I do a bank type, I'm going to be adding 2 hours of bank. Every time I calculate, I'll be adding 2 hours. So we'll go ahead and save that. So right now in his time card, he has nothing. There's no activity for personal. So we'll go ahead and do a bank add. It's a bank calc. Bank calc. So we're just going to load personal. Sorry, just calculate them all. So then if we go back to employee mate, we should see that Fred has a balance of 2 hours now in his bank because we just ran bank calc to give him the 2 hours that's in his, how much to add every time we calc. So now if Fred wants to use one of his hours, that would be in his time card in payroll post. Oh, geez, I haven't set up a payroll. Hang on. Payroll information, new Check date, make it the 22nd. Description. Okay, so now I can go into payroll post. And go ahead and say, okay. Come in here and we'll do new. Fred. Personal payroll code. Account number, I'm just gonna pick tax receivable. I'm just picking just generic numbers right now. I don't know. The account number is obviously important, but for today's purposes, and is gonna use 1 hour. So now I have 1 hour of personal time that he's consumed in his bank. So if I say done or commit. And then I come back into employee maintenance. Thanks for Fred, he's only got 1 hour because we show that he used an hour in his post there. So yeah, and there's a lot of reports that you can run. I'm not going to try to cover all of those in a webinar. Oh, you got a question?
If I have a bank set by the employee's anniversary date, I shouldn't have to do bank calculate for it to update.
Yes, you still have to do bank calculate to update. But bank calculate will only update if it's past the anniversary date.
And then another question is, can effective date be utilized for banks? For instance, if you go back and run a pay stub, it will utilize the current bank and not the banks from the actual period.
Yeah, it's an issue with our reports because we don't have the report itself doesn't necessarily, or I should say, when the report was created at the dawn of time when we had the chisel and stone, we didn't have payroll info, which gave us the range of the time frame to use. So the reports just haven't been updated to utilize the payroll info. So all we could ever do on banks was just show the current bank when they ran the pay stubs, not the bank at the time of their payroll. So in other words, like the day of the payroll, obviously would be the right bank information on the pay stub. But then you go backwards 2 months, and of course, it's still the same as what their current one shows. So essentially, that's kind of how you would run a bank. You would set up, make sure the employee has the bank, and then you would just post time to that person's the pay code that adjusts whether we're going to be consuming any of the bank information from that. So that brings us into the longer discussion, which is comp time that I wanted to have because we just got done with the slew of people's questions about comp time. So I thought it'd be a good idea to bring that up and how that's how you really should have comp time set up. Now I know a lot of you have some comp time set up in a variety of ways. I'm just basically covering today kind of what we have found to be the optimum method of setting up comp time. So again, the first step of setting up comp time is creating your comp time bank. So we're going to go ahead and create a new bank. CMT for comp time. So comp time, we don't put a calc type in. I think we can get away with that. And there's no associated bank with calc time, with comp time. The reason there's no calculation with comp time is because the way they accrue comp time is by taking one of their overtime hours or whatever hours you allow. Some places allow regular hours to be comped, but whatever you're allowing to comp it, it puts it into in this case, the CMT comp time bank for each employee. So then the second step, of course, for each employee would be for the creation, would be the pay types. So we need to set up a comp time pay type. But there's two we set up. One is the comp time reversal. And the reversal is usually assigned to a specific number. So we're just going to come down here and pick one. Let's call it probably here, personal services. Good enough. Let's try that again. Let's click it on this time. There we go. For the usage, you want to make sure your payroll factor is probably a 1. And we are going to update the following bank, CMT. Make sure that you mark it as taxable and comp time. Very important. Okay, so then we also need another pay code called comp time usage. This is when he uses his comp time. And in this case, when he's using his comp time, yep, same account number, payroll factor. But you don't check on the usage that it's comp time. The only one that has the comp time check is the one that's the reversal. Okay, so now we need to go to Fred and get Fred straightened up to be able to use comp time. So the first thing we do is we come into his banks. We add his comp time. And then we go, that should be all we need to do for him at this point. And then now let's go to payroll post. And let's give Fred, go ahead and say okay. And if I click new, Fred's going to have one regular hour. And we're going to go ahead and say it's a comp time hour. And he's got 2 hours. No, let's make it 4.5 hours. So I save it. And so now he has 4.5 hours of comp time. And then Fred, that's just normally it'd be a whole nother journal on a whole nother day. But to avoid that, I'm just going to go ahead and say new. And in this case, Fred's going to consume one of his comp time hours. Oh, got to have a valid account. It should be the same as the comp time account. I didn't set that up quite right. Okay. So done. So if we look at Okay, so if we go back and look at the journal after it's been committed. You should see that we have the regular hours at 4.5 and then the comp time used hours of 1. So that should leave him with, because he did regular hours and not overtime hours, that should leave him with 3.5 hours of comp time in his bank. So if we go back to employee maintenance, we bring up Fred, we go to his banks, comp time, he indeed has 3.5 hours of time in his bank. So the thing that I did mess up setting up just to recover it is if we set up the payroll type for comp time used, I need to have the same default account number here that we had. Well, let me just grab the one off the CTR. Okay. That was what I was missing. So now when you go to payroll post, it shouldn't give you that issue. The warning about the things missing, I mean. Oh, the default account. It's fine. That's a different issue from it. Just this is a test database that I've been setting up. So, but basically that's how it works. So what happens internally is if we look at the transactions real quick on the journal. So if I go to payroll reports, here's somewhere you are. And we do a PR audit by account. So our starting date was today, the ending date was today. So what we see for Fred going in is that he had 4.5 hours of regular time, and then he had 1 hour of comp time used going in, and then he had 4.5 hours of comp time reversal going in to reverse off his 4.5 hours of regular time that was posted. This way, everything itself could be, set correctly to show the proper pieces. So what he'll see on his time card would be CTR, which is the comp time reversal, and then the CTU, which will be how much he's used. And then he'll see a bank total at the bottom, which will be the current banks. Sometimes, for instance, like if he's going to use, when you do comp time on like overtime's 1.5. So if he wants to comp 3 hours of overtime, or 4 hours of overtime, he ends up with 6 hours of comp time because comp time is used by hour, not by 1.5. So whatever pay type you're comping, it'll use that factor for the number of hours when it saves it to the comp time. But I don't want to go on too much longer today on this, being as webinars I try to keep as relatively straightforward as I can. So there's still a lot more to go on that you can look at comp time, but this is basically how we would have you set it up to make sure you have the 2 pay codes, one for the reversal that's separate from the one that's for the usage. Okay, whew, that was a long one. Any questions? And purchase order kept. Okay, Frank, well, we can wait for just a second. I still want to give people a chance if they have any questions. Does anybody have any questions on comp time and how it's supposed to be set up and used?
So we did get a question on comp time.
Very good. Okay, comp time first, Frank, and then I'll come to your question. What's the question on comp time?
We have max comp time of 60 hours. Is there a way to keep track of that?
Right now, no, but this is absolutely something we're trying to put in the ability to have a max bank that we can honor in our system. Unfortunately, right now we don't have that implemented yet. So, but it will be we are absolutely trying to put in something where we can say this, and we're going to try to make it to be by employee. So it'll be like a second parameter where we have the first parameter was amount, the second parameter would be a max. Yeah, it'd be for all of them as well. Yeah, what's the right term? Irons in the fire, but I have no more fire. The coal ran out. I have a lot of irons in the fire, but the coals ran out. That's how that one works. But yes, we're definitely, that's on plans for a bank type update. As well as there's some other calculations we want to be able to do. We're also looking at possibly doing some type of bank type where we allow like a table generation. So depending on, we have some people that like for vacation for the first, 10 years of their anniversary, they get 2 weeks. And then they're from that point forward, then they get 3 weeks and, variety of things like that. What was Frank's question, Paul?
Is there any way to prevent inventory items that are on back order and listed on a PO from being pulled again if the PO calc is run again?
Yes, there is. You're right. I'm thinking about it. We don't look at the current POs when we're generating the new PO for an inventory item. So that's just something I will, if you can, Frank, if you can take that same question and call that into Brett so we can get it added to our, I view that as a bug, because if we already have a PO with it, we shouldn't be ordering it again. So we should be showing it as on order. So I'm not certain. I want somebody to go through the code to make sure, because I thought we were doing that, but I could easily see where we would miss the PO part of what's already on order to just not order it again. So call that one into Brett as soon as we're done on the webinar.
He said, "Will do." My stock clerk asked me this morning, so I thought I'd throw it out there.
Yeah, no problem. That's perfect. This is what this is for, is, oddball questions at the end. That, I need someone to look at it, so that's why I want you to bring it to Brett so he can look at it. All right, well, thank you all for attending. It was been a pleasure to show off comp time today. And as you always know, you know where we live. So if you have any questions or issues with your software, don't hesitate to contact us. And everybody have a great rest of the day Monday. Remember, there was a brand new update today that fixed incentive pay. So if you need to get your incentive pay printed correctly, please make sure you get the download.
We do have another question.
Oh.
In PFA Works, can an employee use double time?
Oh, that's a large question, Brenda. Yeah, yes and no. In PFA Works, you can, as long as you have the thing set up, and I think if you say it's extra incentive pay, and I can't remember what the checkbox is, additional rate, then they can put in the notes field that it's supposed to be double time, and as long as you have a pay type during the import process, you can change the pay type to double time. But right now it does, in the new one that we're doing, that's part of it, where they are allowed to select which pay type that they'll be under, whether it's regular, overtime, or double time. But Brenda, if you guys are providing double time there, I would really enjoy, possibly sending in a resume. Yeah. That's the only way we have right now in PFA Works, but in the new one, they'll be able to specify it directly, provided you're allowing them to do that.
George, can I ask a question without typing it in the chat box?
Yes, you may, Lisa. That's perfectly fine.
Okay, I do not do the job costing. We do about 55 to 60 jobs here a year, and I just control it with the 5th position of my account number in the general ledger.
Okay,
I've talked with Frank and Jerry Heim about using the job costing. If I'm doing this correct, Frank, you can correct me. But I was told that it didn't work with the kiosk. There wasn't the ability for the employee to pick the job in the kiosk.
right now, that is correct.
Okay, so what we talked about at the beginning of this webinar then does not address that?
No, what those is so during the import process, as long as they typed in the notes the job that it was supposed to be under, it gives the ability for the clerk now who's doing the import to, specify which job and the job hours.
And that would be per activity that they put in, wouldn't it?
It would be, whatever they put it, if you guys got job costing on them doing, vacation time for whatever reason. It doesn't really matter at the kiosk side because it's all just in notes. So anything that they post there is in notes. And likewise in the new one, the way we've implemented in the new, it just shows up as lines at the bottom for them to key in the hours and the job type that it's supposed to be.
So in the new edition, job costing won't be part of the behind the scenes either?
In the new edition, it's right up front for the employee to put the job type in and the number of hours on the job if he wants to change it. So if he puts in it, like say he puts in 4 hours for regular, he puts in 4 hours of regular time on, let's call it shoulder maintenance on something. At the bottom of that, he'll have a line where he can say, this is for job shoulder, and it was and the hours will fill in based on what he currently keyed in for. But if he's supposed to change that to 2 or whatever, the reason I have that hours there is mainly for places that are job costing with salary people because they're not popping hours in all the time.
Okay. So in the update, it will happen then?
Yes, and the update is right there, right for you to see.
Okay. All right, thanks. Frank, did I ask my question right?
I always feel like the middleman here. See what Frank types. He says, yep. All right, then I am going to let everybody get back to their very busy day. And we hope to hear from you next month when we hopefully will have something to show on the new time card stuff running.
You are now working smarter with ProFund Accounting. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content like this.